back everyone to the Hearthstone Global Games. We move now into a potential qualification match. It is going to be the Netherlands versus Singapore. Both teams are at 3-1, and obviously moving into 4-1 puts you in that nice comfy spot for the group stages.
Yeah, looking good for one of these two teams. They both had relatively easy routes this far as well. I mean, nothing's easy in this tournament, but relative to what you could have had. So,
in terms of like not facing teams like Czech Republic, Ukraine, for example,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think Netherlands faced Germany. That's sort of it, really, with respect to some of the other teams they faced. But yeah, they haven't been facing all those massive things over and over.
Well, let's take a look at these rosters and see who is going to be competing on your screen. Some very recognisable faces, I'm sure. You'll be looking at Netherlands and saying, well, that is a powerhouse squad. Tice, Tyler, Mitsuhide and Theo. But Singapore, they're also something you don't want to mess with.
You really don't. They've racked up 125 HCT points between them last season alone. Two of them are going to playoffs, one missed by 1 point. So it's actually surprisingly close, as the Netherlands only have 2 people going to playoffs as well. As you see the beautiful scenes there of the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, interestingly, has more than a quarter of it below sea level, Neil. Did you know that?
How do they, like, build houses underwater?
Well, they don't. Just a quarter of the Netherlands is underwater.
Okay, that sounds awkward.
It is pretty awkward.
But it is a very flat country, I know that. But their Hearthstone's anything but flat. It's been pretty exciting stuff throughout, not just this year, but last year as well, when they had some terrific games, notably that one against Brazil last year, who they have now got to chase, because Brazil gave that 5-0, booking their spot to that top 16.
Yeah, and 4-1 should get you there. We've decided 4 wins is there now, right? I know you can't give me a yes or no, Neil, but I just want you to give me, not them, me, yes or no.
Probably.
Probably. Great. That's still not a yes or no. That's still extremely indecisive. Let's see what bans took place from these sides, see what they wanted to get rid of and what they didn't want to face against. It would seem like Warriors taken away from Singapore and the Rogue was taken away from Netherlands.
Which is interesting because earlier in the season, Rogue wasn't really that rated. It was mainly odd rogues, and now it's nearly all quest rogues. And getting first ban means you're expecting yourselves to play your mid-rangey stuff. And the Singapore do have the control mage in their lineup, so it's definitely a reason to get rid of the rogue for sure.
Yeah, a lot of control-y type decks for the Singapore, but there's a few more aggressive variants available for the Netherlands. They've got odd Paladin, they've got Aggro Mage, for example, which does seem to be the norm. So maybe control mage being brought from Singapore is just a little bit different, trying to target a few different matchups.
Yeah, and I feel that what they're doing with the pick bans, I touched on it earlier, is your first ban goes into your first 2 picks, and it's just like, let's see what happens. You know, you try and adjust it after that, but it sort of all falls apart a little bit.
And the plans have changed every week,
yes,
really, haven't they? And I feel like last year in the Global Games, people kind of worked out the meta, but now we're still trying to work out what the best process is for bans. Let's have a look at how the matchups are going to take place after the pick process. Then Mitsuhide is going to kick it off, and it is going to start with his Paladin against a Priest from Sequinox.
Yeah, it's a normal control-looking Priest with Mind Blast, whatever you want to call that these days. I think we just call it control.
Control Priest seems okay to me. And
then the Druid faces up, I think, fairly nicely, although stat sites disagree. I quite like the Druid against the Face Mage. Obviously, there's a lot of things the Mage can do. And they've got Quest Rogue against Warrior, so Singapore could just 3-0 this.
Yeah, some favourable game types for them, but you are going up against the Netherlands, and just looking at those names, it's not going to be easy. When you combine all those brains together, you get a superhuman Dutch scary thing.
You do get
it's
exactly
pretty terrifying.
This scary, terrifying thing. But Singapore, sorry, getting your system of facting, have had more top 16s and more top 4s than the Netherlands this season between their players in tour stops and such like.
Who has had the most, Neil?
Katsukori's had 2. He got top 4 at somewhere, at Taipei, and top 8 at Seoul. Kaya's got top 4 in Sydney, and Thijs is the only player from the Netherlands to get any sort of result, getting top 4 at Germany.
And he played very well at Germany.
He really did, and he was on a mission to prove that he's more than just a guy who streams some fun decks.
And I think he proved that.
I think he did a really good job of proving it. I think we know that anyway.
Yes.
But I think he was feeling it a little bit, that people maybe perceive him that way. You know, 2 times a European champion.
And I mean,
being perceived as a memer, that's just not right.
He's been performing well on his stream in ladder as well. I mean, I think I saw him at number 3 the other day playing like an Inner Fire Priest. So he finds these ways of manipulating off-meta decks and turning them just into meta decks.
Of course, he's good.
He's very good.
But again, I think he is feeling not the pressure, but just feeling the wave of sentiment that, oh, what's Ty's done this year? What did he do last year? I'll tell you what he's done. He's entered like 2 tour stops and top 4'd one of them.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Well, if you're going to reel off some facts, I guess I gave you a Netherlands fact earlier. I'll give you a Singapore fact.
Go on then.
Yes. Did you know you can read the national anthem of Singapore off the back of a 1,000, I guess, dollar note? I can't remember what the currency is in Singapore. But on their 1,000 notes, they have the national anthem.
Actually, it's printed on the note. It's not just like you can read. I mean, you can read off the bit of any note. You just sort of
No. They have it actually printed on the back of a 1,000 note.
That's actually pretty cool.
1,000 notes are fairly rare, from what I know. But yeah, I feel like that's a nice little tribute to the national anthem. But we're going to kick off game number 1 then. Mitsuhide versus Equinox. And it's going to be the Odd Paladin versus the Control Priest. Of course, the Control Priest is going to be looked for those removal tools. Pyromancer is great. Duskbreakers are incredible. Even Primordial Drake later on is going to make a big difference. Yeah,
it depends how early they think the beatdown is going to commence. And obviously, we know Odd Paladin commences it from turn 1, as you can see from this Lost in the Jungle there. So the Drake will be too slow. The Screen would normally be too slow, and I assume they throw it away here. But with the Pyromancer in hand, they have some choices. I mean, you can keep the Drake because if you get to turn 8, you win the game with it. Although 2 damage on turn 8, you're quite often needing to do 3. But it would combo really well if they pick up a Duskbreaker. But I think they'll be hunting for that Duskbreaker or some cheapos to go with the Pyromancer.
Cheapos.
Cheap spells.
Is this new lingo I'm not aware of? But yeah, they had already thrown away their cards and just left with the Pyromancer, the Psychic Scream, and Primordial Drake, which, to be fair, they're not the worst things to be put into your hand, but albeit could be a little bit too slow. The Void Ripper is an interesting keep on the side of the Netherlands. Clearly, they want to either use that as an aggressive tool or potentially just a defensive one as well.
Curious to see what they do here with these Pyromancers because they have 2 and they have no spells. They may feel the need to occupy the board with one of them.
Yeah, just plop one on now.
But they would be scared of, obviously, the Blessing Might, so that's why it was such a tough decision.
And this is going to be a scary Blessing.
And the Veteran would have actually just wiped it out, we can see, as well. So now, Netherlands have to decide not what they want to do now, but what they want to do about turn 4 Duskbreaker. So how much they want to commit their actual cards, and how much they just want to press the button and say, well, your Duskbreaker didn't kill anything. But a Blessing of Might straight to the mush on turn 2 really commences a lot of damage on a Divine Shield minion.
And I am interested they opted to choose Void Ripper and keep Void Ripper over keeping Blood Knight. I feel like Blood Knight, like if it gets to turn 5 and they play a Giggling, then it's going to be a little bit tricky for Mitsuhide, but with a Blood Knight available in hand, it just becomes so much more easy. I feel like the Blood Knight is a better tech than Void Ripper at this current meta.
Woo!
You right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the Duskbreaker.
Neil was spinning on his chair.
Well, I mean,
focus on Hearthstone.
It was exciting.
But Duskbreaker's going to help, certainly. But Netherlands didn't want to commit too heavily to the Blessing of Might play previously either. They are waiting for the right time.
Big reward for them now picking up that Corridor Creeper. So when they do lose their board, which will probably be going into their potential coin level up turn, then the Corridor Creeper will be an instant reload. And now this Blessing of Might is pretty fruity because it forces out the Duskbreaker if it exists, unless Singapore can draw a cheap spell. That's not a cheap spell.
I think you're okay, just Duskbreaker and taking 4 next turn. You hope that you get a spell to go along with Pyromancer next turn, otherwise you can just most likely trade off with your Duskbreaker on board.
Giggling Venter, a little bit risky when your opponents have Blood Knights. Do they have the full complement of 2? I think they do. Just double checking.
Yes.
They do. You can find it quicker than me.
They do.
Young eyes.
I mean, you say that, but I am the one wearing glasses, Neil.
That's even more reason why you can see and I can't.
True. Although they're for long distance rather than close.
And Singapore are going to be put to a guessing game after this turn regarding exactly what to do about all the potential things, the Blood Knights, the level ups, etc. But they may just be forced to Giggling Event and hope it all goes away, to be honest.
Singapore just hoping for a spell and they find one. That's decent timing, I'd say.
Seems like a good time to me.
Just going into your opponent's turn number 5 where they play level up.
Yeah, they're going to do all sorts of naughty things if you don't get this down this turn. And then suddenly everything gets so much better. You can play the Giggling to buy yourself some time into the Psychic Scream. And then it just gets easier and easier, except for the fact eventually Netherlands will be able to play Vine Cleaver, press the hero power, level up all in the space of a couple of turns.
Yeah, even though that Duskbreaker, Primordial Drake, Psychic Scream, Pyromancer, they're all fantastic ways of clearing, they can just be gobbled up by the sheer amount of reload available for the Netherlands, and then there needs to be an actual win condition for Singapore, because it's all well and good stalling, but they need to start actually pushing some face damage of their own.
The fact they're going to be able to start getting cards, though, from this Northshire Cleric is a big deal, and it may be they have to trade into this as the Paladin, which is fine for Equinox. It just buys him another turn. It's not fine, he'd rather it lived, but it's obviously decent for him.
Purifier's Maul is certainly the Maul they would have been wanting. Plays really nicely. You can Divine Shield up a couple of minions, hope to have some of your Silverhand recruits survive, and then you have level up a little bit later on.
Equinox has gone from more of a slightly more casual player last time around to being mega serious this time around. And it's showing. He got 34 HCT points, which is enough to get him in the APAC Championships in a couple of weeks' time. And of course they have their tour stop coming up in Singapore.
They do.
So I imagine we'll see all of these at that event.
Well, if they can sign up on time. Not that many spots. Was it 128 spots or something like that?
Or was it only?
Yeah, only 128 spots, so you've got to be quick submitting your deck list if you want to be involved. Of course, I imagine the registration time will probably favour the locals.
Yeah, but I think all the pros do get up.
They do,
for these things.
They try. And hello, hello, hello indeed. But there is a Blood Knight.
But Psychic Scream, though.
Yeah. But do you pass up the opportunity to eat up 6 Divine Shields? Because if there isn't a Psychic Scream,
then you win the game with your 6 times 3 plus 3 Blood Knight. 21.
Let me think.
It's a big night. Tricky decision, though.
I mean, alternatively, you can just pass up this Blood Knight and you could give something like a level up. Or even just Raid Leader. If you're scared of Psychic Scream, then maybe you just get Raid Leader.
So you're not going to use level up going into the turn 7, I feel, just because Psychic Scream. If you're scared of Psychic Scream, so if you're going to play around Psychic Scream, or sorry, let's start again. If you're going to play as if there is no Psychic Scream, I think you just whip out your Blood Knight.
Yeah. But if there is, then it's probably Raid Leader.
Yeah, maybe Raid Leader's a good middle ground. How do the trades look otherwise? Just bumpity bump.
Oh, nom nom nom.
Here we go. 21-21. Unless a Giggling Event is a good card. It might be.
I mean, if you need to bring a card back from the dead to try and counteract something, I'd say it's a pretty good card.
But no, it has been counteracted, and they've got a deck of 1/1s, an expensive Corridor Creepers, and a 3/3 for 3. So the backup plan was pretty good there. Equinox, a little smile there. Your 21-21 is just gone.
Gone comfortably. But there is the chance that they could just gobble up some Divine Shields once again later on.
Yeah, now things are going to get a little bit awkward in the short term, but of course, because the Priest cards cost more than the Paladins, the fact we're now on 8 mana means that the Priest should be able to hang on in there. Still on 29 health, so they can even afford 1 accident if they're looking to buy a bit of time.
What would you consider an accident in this scenario?
Taking 19 to the face in 1 turn would probably qualify as having to reset the Dr. Boom accident timer to 0.
You'd have to get the book out for that one, wouldn't you? Report that to the manager.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're very sorry, but there's been a bit of a spillage. What happened? Well, we lost more than half our life.
Yeah.
It just spilled out onto the table.
I think in the risk assessment forms it usually says you try not to lose more than half of your health.
Yeah, definitely a thing.
Blood Knight's back.
Yeah, and better than ever, though, this time around.
Unfortunately, it doesn't come back as a 21-21. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Depends who you're supporting, really.
I'm not supporting either team.
Of course, because you're an impartial caster. Unlike Falcone, who no doubt is supporting the Netherlands.
The man's just terrible, isn't he?
He's a beast for supporting his teams.
It's awful. If the United Kingdom were playing, I would not be supporting them whatsoever.
No, nor me. How you doing, guys? So, the level up now... it's weird to call this almost the final push, but this is almost the final push. Harrison will be actually pretty useful should a Vine Cleaver get established. Would have been more useful a couple of turns ago when there was actually a weapon in play. But this is the turn where the Primordial Drake probably helps avoid the accident. Dump a powered shield on it.
Oh, you're going for more. I mean, the Primordial Drake does kill off the same amount as just a Pyromancer here.
And this does set up a better board.
Unfortunately, you can't kill off anything else, so probably just a Skulking Geist to reduce the chances of a Blessing or anything like that coming out from your opponent.
The Geist in good shape though for this board. Good old 6 health when your opponent's all got 5 attack. So, like I said, they can afford an accident. This is kind of the accident I had in mind, joking aside, where you just lose it for 1 turn. But it is only going to be that 1 turn. And of course now the damage done by the Pyromancer sets up the Drake nicely.
Well, Netherlands could recognise that though and trade both their 3/2s into the 4/6 if they would like
But
to.
then you don't need the Drake anymore.
Exactly.
So either way is nice. The Divine Hymn is going to be pretty tasty too, in association with the Pyromancer and the Drake.
And this Void Ripper still sat in the hand for the Netherlands. And I'm really trying to work out. Well, I'm trying to work out what they were keeping it for, like what their thought process was in the early game.
Looks like it's going to be this bit where
maybe getting rid of
the raid leader.
Getting rid of a Twilight Drake early on potentially.
Talking of accidents, I think there might be one coming the other way here. But that has defended against the Drake pretty nicely. Obviously retaining the buffs from the raid leader when it switcheroos.
Well, there you go. There is a use of the Void Ripper. It's finally coming.
You're sort of, there you go then.
Well,
you win.
At least they've actually put it to some good use. If that was their game plan from the get-go, of waiting for a big enough board and then having a nice switch to keep that board alive. Certainly works out nicely when you know your opponent has Pyromancers, for example, so...
Yeah. And the Drake, I mean, this has defended the Drake pretty well. Singapore can deal with a lot of this, of course, with that Drake, but they don't have a very good follow-up for it. They don't need an amazing one. They've nearly run the Netherlands out of natural resources and they're just down to their hero power.
Drake, trade, Divine Hymn, I would say is a pretty good turn.
I mean, it does look nice.
Maybe you don't need to Divine Hymn. Maybe you could just heal up with your hero power at this point and wait for a Northshire Cleric Divine Hymn.
That does seem better. There wouldn't be a lot to use a Cleric on, but that does seem better, getting that extra cheeky 2 healing in. Yeah, I like just healing for 2 instead of for 6.
Well, my original thought was trading in, making a value trade with the Skulking Geist, and then you also get the benefit of healing that up with Divining Hymn. But clearing off the big minion does make sense.
Good read here from Singapore. They've seen a lot of buffs already in this game, so figuring there's a good chance that unless there's a weapon, then the Drake will live. And if there's a weapon, you've got Harrison, Divine Hymn, heal your face, and everything's lovely. But now there's a serious consideration for Mitsuhide on whether he wants to play this Leroy or not. Otherwise, when do you get through this Drake? Clue, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, you Leroy, you trade, and then you can kill off the Northshire Cleric as well, but then you're just leaving your opponent. Your board is being faced with 2 1/1s. You can put a Corridor Creeper and some 1/1s of your own.
But if you don't do that, then you're going to give them opponents cards, and giving Priest cards when on 10 mana does not seem like it ends in a happy story.
No, it does not. So Leroy Corridor Creeper hero power seems a respectable turn. It's certainly not a pretty one.
It's not pretty at all. But that's a function of the good removal that Sequinox has had already. Of course, it's not just Sequinox, he has his team talking to him in his ear, a bit like you do. It's not just you, there's me just rattling away.
Unfortunately.
You love it, really.
I mean, Mitsuhide on the side of Netherlands, he's gone relatively quiet in terms of tournaments as of late, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not had a great year so far.
I mean, he won a seat story quite some time ago, didn't he?
Yeah, a couple of seat stories ago he won, and he won DreamHack Winter 16, but has been quiet this season. And that happens. Metas don't suit some players, or maybe they have other commitments at times. Question here, by the way, that is taking so long, is do you play the Harrison, or do you feel you just win if your opponent doesn't get Vine Cleaver, so you keep the Harrison back and then they Vine Cleaver you win? It's a tough one because he challenges the board so well, but he has such a better job later on.
Why the need to Mind Blast there? I guess they're thinking, why wouldn't we?
Yeah, that's it.
We don't have any Pyromancers left, so that's not going to do anything. Let's just use the mana while we've got some.
Because you might want to Harvest and Divine Hymn, Mind Blast, Hero Power all in one turn at some point.
But suddenly this board
However,
starting to overwhelm Sequinox.
and if they'd kept the Mind Blast back, this Drake would challenge the board so much better. And the downside of what they did, this Harrison not being on the board, is the reason they're getting that overwhelmed.
And Singapore will be desperately hoping for that second Psychic Scream. Otherwise, this is edging towards Netherlands going 1-0 up.
Yeah, it's sneaking that way.
I wonder.
You can change quickly, but they're in the position where having to divine him, keeping the Twilight Drake. I figure for the Dustbreaker synergy, they figure that as a 4/3 it's no use.
Oh, Vinecleaver is there. And is there a possibility not to play this now from these boys? These Netherlands lads, they might be actually thinking, right, what could be in the hand that's just been sat there for so long?
They will be thinking that. Whether they can work out the conclusion is another question, but they should be able to.
If we
Especially when it's 2 cards. They chose not to spend 10 mana on anything last turn.
If they do Vinecleaver, they open up the chance for Harrison Jones to draw some cards, but will they just win the following turn anyway?
There just isn't another card they wouldn't have played. So I think they can work it out. And if anyone can work it out, it's Tyler, Theo, and Mitsuhide.
And you saw that as soon as it was drawn, Mitsuhide, he hovered over it straight away, but then
Somebody
it's
shouted,
like he grabbed it and then just went, no, actually, let's think about this.
slow motion, somebody just running, sort of holding their hand in the air saying stop.
Move quickly.
And there seems to be a lot of deliberation between the team, but eventually they are going to go for it. They're not going to go for it. It's a big decision in this early game. But as I said, there's so much damage on the board anyway, it would need to be a significant draw from Harrison Jones to actually stop.
Reporting for duty.
Well, I'm visualizing sort of one of the players, like Mitsu, trying to mouse over it, and then somebody else saying no, and they're just dragging the mouse backwards and forwards on this Vinecleaver.
Duskbreaker keeps Sequinox alive for now.
For now, and now he can probably play the Twilight Drake as well, just to have something on the board. I think a 4/2's fine here.
And that was exactly the ticket back into the game that Singapore needed here, because now Vinecleaver will probably just be played.
The light dim.
Except the Righteous Protector might slow that down, but no, they're going to play it. Because it's just so much damage. And the dudes that it makes are also more damage. They know there's no more AoE. And just waiting that one turn. Plus, the good pickup of the Righteous Protector, let's not mess around with that either.
But still, Harrison Jones has to do some work.
He has got to not just go to the museum. He's got to like go there, open the right boxes, pick up whatever he needs to pick up. Second Divine Him?
Yeah, Divine Him. You don't have a second Duskbreaker.
Well, like, Acolyte's not enough. Alex Straza's not enough. Is the Acolyte enough, actually? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So you can heal up to 7, and
It's
you swap them. They still have 7 on the board, and Singapore concede. Netherlands relentless with the amount of pressure they were able to push through, and they were very patient with their Vinecleaver there, quite rightly so.
Made a big difference, most likely. Picking up Righteous Protector, a big deal too, but nicely worked out there.
Yeah, and an unfavourable matchup, I guess you could say, but is anything really unfavourable against the odd Paladin? Odd Paladin's just so strong, isn't it, Neil? The best Paladin, as I have called it many a time.
I think the Warrior might just destroy it.
Yeah, I guess it does, doesn't it? But I've still seen Odd Paladin beat Odd Warrior.
And that's
as well.
the reason the deck won't go away. Of course, you can just build it quite cheap and have very good results with it.
Well, let's have a look at the matchup and see what's going to be coming up next then, and see if Singapore are going to have a better chance at finding a victory. It is going to be the Aggro Mage, and it's going to be Tyler piloting that one. And it is going to be the Malygos Druid available for Crumpled on Singapore. Now, naturally, I tend to think, well, Malygos Druid, what does it do? It gains a lot of armor, so it should, in theory, be able to get out of range of the amount of damage that actually the Mage can push. However, the Malygos Druid can struggle to deal with early boards, and if Mana Worms start to fly onto the board, if Sorcerer's Apprentice start to fly on the board, it could get pretty ugly from the Mage's side.
It definitely could, and again, when we look at sort of stats sites, which aren't the be-all and end-all, but they're very helpful guides, it says the Mage is a slight favourite. I don't agree. I think that it's maybe slight Druid favoured here.
Okay.
But because I think the Mage is an easier deck to play, and that skews stats sometimes. But again, with you, basically the Druid's going to armour out of range. All about those early turns when the Druid basically is sitting there messing around with wild growths and nourishers, and you're just hitting them.
I guess the Cosmic Anomaly has helped this matchup somewhat, just that extra little bit of burst damage. You can find extra bits from Primordial Glyph as well. It's an exciting game from the Mage's side, especially if you can find a Luneth. We know the difference that can make. Right, while we're waiting for these players to get ready, Neil, I'm going to hit you with some more facts.
Okay. I'm really punch drunk, but let's have some more.
Netherlands or Singapore?
Let's go with Singapore.
Singapore, supposedly, are the fastest walkers in the world, Neil.
What's their average speed?
Their average speed, Neil, is they walk 18 meters in 10.55 seconds, which is 6.15 kilometers an hour, which works out as 3.8 miles per hour.
Wow.
That, Neil, is the same speed as bees fly.
The same speed as bees fly?
Mm-hmm.
3.85 miles an hour.
It's pretty quick.
The same speed that you run.
Neil, I'm really quick. This race will happen, and I will document it, and I will vlog it, or whatever the cool kids do nowadays.
We'll show it on here next year.
Yeah, and we'll see you lose by over half a mile.
Whoa. I've got a year to not be this size, you realise that? I will be a year older.
Well, this is going to be a good incentive for you. You're going to be 69 next year.
Only a tiny percentage.
So the Netherlands, did you know?
Oh, sorry, you want these? Okay.
Yeah. The Dutch eat the most licorice in the world.
Why?
Why do they eat the most licorice in the world? Because they like licorice? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe because, see, Tyler, he used to eat licorice when he was back in the Netherlands.
Yeah, but now it's all Gucci.
Now he's moved on.
So how much licorice do they eat? I'm sure you've got that.
32 million kilos per year,
What, each?
Lorinda. No. Collectively, as a country, they eat that much.
That's still a lot.
It did specify black licorice, so maybe not red licorice. Maybe it's different from red licorice.
Red licorice, I think?
Yes, it is a thing. Sweeter.
Okay.
A bit like me. I'm a bit sweeter than you. Game number 2 then. Tyler versus Crumpled. And it's going to be the Aggro Mage for Tyler, trying to pilot it through the potential armor gain for Crumpled.
And the removal.
And the Malygos. And everything else.
I said the removal specifically just because the hand they have. Naturalize very good at killing things and proccing things, but they've got the coin, so they don't necessarily need to proc counter spells so much.
Naturalize is good at killing things, but it also gives cards. You don't really want to be giving cards
That's a good point.
to you, the Mage.
Yeah, I can go with that.
But it is also a great fallback plan. If there is a mana worm spiraling out of control, sometimes it is nice to have a Naturalize as a backup plan just to remove it off the board. But this looks like a healthier start. The Ultimate Infestation, probably not what they wanted to be looking for.
You know what they would want in their opening hand?
Begins with W?
Yeah, it does. It's that card, and they haven't got it.
Wrath.
Yes.
Okay.
That'll do. It's not in the deck.
To be fair, Wrath used to be in Malygos Druid, and it was in Malygos Druid for this reason. For against aggressive decks, you had the tools to remove some of those early minions.
But there are no aggressive decks anymore, which is why Quest Rogue is dominating everywhere.
Yeah. But the more Quest Rogue dominates, the more aggro decks will start to come back into the meta.
But the trouble is, people are playing Odd Warrior, so they're keeping... See, the Odd Warriors, even though they beat the Quest Rogue, they think they lose to the Quest Rogue, sorry. They're just doing Quest Rogue a favour. They're keeping all the aggro out, they're losing to the Quest Rogue. And they're just making Quest Rogue happen. Blame the Odd Warriors, guys. Don't blame the Quest Rogues. They can't help it. They're just a symptom.
So you're saying Odd Warrior players are bad people? Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that, yes. Did you not know that?
I assumed they were.
It's going
Just from-
really well on ladder right now.
Just from the players
I think
that I know
winning
that
is
play it.
probably something people are entitled to try and do.
So Spellstone's an important pickup for Singapore. It does allow them to deal with this Sorcerer's Apprentice if they would like to, but maybe they just wait a little bit.
Ooh. That's pretty brave. Willing to use up some face tanking. And clearing up this. The Apprentice is so dangerous early on. It's so dangerous at all times, like very early or very late. When they appear in pairs later in the game, and you just like empty your hand after an Luneth, that can get pretty fruity.
But the trouble is they're both just going to be removed so comfortably by Singapore here. And that's going to be very difficult for Netherlands to try and get a foot back into this. So maybe they go for something like Kirin Mage into Explosive Runes, just to try and encourage maybe a little bit of weird spell play from Singapore, try and make them burn a coin, for example.
Yeah, we saw that in the last match. There's sort of the opposite, where Indonesia had to play around an imaginary counterspell that wasn't there, and then the actual counterspell came down. They hadn't got the cards to play around the imaginary one anymore, or the real one. So a lot of thought going into this. Does seem reasonable though. Obviously, Singapore looking to get to that Spreading Plague Arcane Tyrant turn. And it may seem weird. I think it seems weird to some people to talk about that.
So something very subtle there from Tyler, and I know hand tracking is a questionable subject from some players, but he was hovering over both arcane missiles and his explosive runes to try and suggest, I have both secrets here.
Okay.
Which one do you think I would be playing? He obviously clearly doesn't have those secrets, but I feel like that's what he was trying to allude to.
That's really nice, actually. I agree. Good spot there.
And if Crumple does feel like this is a counterspell, you could just say, all right, well, we'll throw a coin into it. If it's not, we do have a swipe just to deal with this 4-3. However, our mana's not looking great if we do go down that route.
Just checking the secrets is usually 2 and 1. It is indeed 2 and 1. By that I mean 2 explosive runes. So just on instinct, they will play around the explosive runes more. But again, the counterspell is the important one here. Keeping out that coin, of course, the spreading plague's handy. And if you're wondering why we're talking about killing these minions when this mage is trying to just kill you from burn, if you don't take much damage from the minions, the burn just doesn't get it done. The armor goes out of range, and you actually kill them back as the druid pretty quickly yourself.
And I mean, I speak of armor at the start of the game. To gain that armor, you do need to kind of find Malfurion. He helps gain that armor. He's one of the key reasons as to why druids do gain an insane amount. Of course, Ultimate Infestation makes a little bit of an impact as well.
That's the thing, all the subsidiary bits and pieces, the ferocious howls, all that, it just adds up as the game goes on. And then you go, Malfurion, lol.
Yes. And Malfurion is usually lulling unless we've seen an Alunith played, and then the Alunith is probably having a good old lull instead. Ooh, now we see the counterspell come into play, and shame you can't play it this turn.
Yeah, and I think what they want to do is keep out the apprentice and try and have some sort of big turn next turn, but the counterspell doesn't really play into that plan. I think they're hoping to pick up something a little bit more aggressive. So now they've just got to dump it and hope. And ouch, I think you swipe something here.
Do you? Or are you coined into Nourish?
Are you looking at the Nourish? So if you coin into Nourish, the big problem is you don't have a coin anymore. But you do test for counterspell. You've already tested, yes.
Yeah, you already know.
Yeah, the coin's really good for counterspell testing later on. So for instance, we know there's a counterspell there which is skewing me, but it's a 50-50 if it's in hand right now, because one was pulled from the deck. So next turn, you can swipe now, then next turn you can go for coin spreading plague, and if your coin gets countered, you just swipe the other thing. But coin Nourish does buy you a lot of mana, obviously. Yeah, reducing the cost of this spell, or increasing the cost. It's like backwards day. I'm saying everything backwards.
That would be an interesting cast.
Would it?
I mean, sometimes I feel like you are saying things on backwards anyway.
Yeah. Well, like which matchup's going to win and who's who. Or do you just mean the letters in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was being a little bit mean, I apologise.
You're never mean, Dan. Not to my face.
Glad you don't notice. Primordial Glyph looks like a nice way of rounding out this turn. Trying to search for a little bit more oomph.
Yeah, the days of weaving in a ping because you're going to get the damage there are long gone. You're not getting there without more gas here. And so trying to get as much stuff early as they can before the Druid gets established. You all right?
Bless me. I mean, I held down the cough button, but I'm well aware my sneeze probably came through your microphone.
Yeah, and the door, neighbouring areas, that sort of thing.
The Cinderstorm is nice. It is just a little bit extra damage, and now this Nourish can be played comfortably. You know that the counterspell's not up.
And you get a tidy little arcane tyrant while you're at it if you want it, but you probably don't even bother.
Well, it gets...
You don't want it to get exploded.
It gets slurped up, doesn't it?
And the danger is you give them a chance to play another exploding runes, because they're keeping that counterspell back right now. So they could just plonk that down after you play your tyrant and represent another runes, and then bad things happen to you. Alexstrasza, really good defensive tool in this match because you're going to go low. So if you can clear up the board at some point, then just go back up to 15.
How low can you go?
Try me.
Can you go down low?
Very.
All the way to the floor?
Probably.
How low can you go?
Just chill.
Can you bring it to the top?
Wow. Have you done?
Yes.
Good.
But yeah, counterspell
Derek does this to me as well, sorry.
What?
Just like says things that just go straight over my head or under my feet or around the corner. I understand.
Counterspell is actually not so bad on the coin. It delays both Alexstrasza and Ultimate Infestation for 1 turn. So it might be worth having a think about, but Cosmic Anomaly plus Missiles and Cinderstorm does offer a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage. The thing with this counterspell now is they've gone so far that they just now got to wait for the coin. We might see that next turn, so that the coin Ultimate Infestation is not possible. Seems to be a potential plan. Oh, so now if you swipe Hero Power the 2/2, you go to 9.
And suddenly you're dead to Fireball and Frostbolt.
Yeah, but you've just seen a load of damage come out of hand. I think you just got to hope, and then next turn Alex your own face. Alex also has that benefit of not taking any damage with explosive runes. And now the Netherlands are going to have to...
They're so close.
...kind of give away their game plan now, though, because this counterspell obviously is just being avoided playing because of the coin, but it also looks like a second explosive runes to some extent. But if they have to play that Arcanologist, then Singapore will have full information.
I wonder.
So the Netherlands are trying to work out, do we just Fireball in face and hope they haven't got Alex? Because do we ever beat an Alex anyway? And the chances are they probably do. Also, they want to play this counterspell now because now coin Ultimate Infestation, as I mentioned last turn, is a big nuisance. But then you're not pushing this damage through. You could counterspell Fireball.
What to do? What to do?
It's whether you wait, save back your burn. If you are at all worried, if you have even a little bit of a sniff of Alexstrasza, then you wait for that Fireball.
But they've also got to worry about the Ultimate Infestation too. Just
Yeah,
gaining
so,
5 armor is just annoying.
So I feel like this is nice. This is a nice in-between of getting the counterspell, stop them from the Ultimate Infestation. If Alexstrasza does come out, you save back your Fireball. Oh, Ferocious Howl, though.
Oh.
Well, I still think it's probably Alexstrasza.
It could be, but it might not be. The reason I think that, so the reason I just made that incredibly vague statement is because if you coin out the Ferocious Howl, obviously get rid of the coin to get countered, and gain the armor now, your opponent has to go through all that armor, and then when they've done that, you can Alexstrasza and go back to 15 anyway.
You're not gaining that much armor, though.
I guess. But you play a Spreading Plague as well, so you don't get hit by the minion.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
How much do you gain? 6.
5. You play the coin first.
So 5, 13, 2 from the minion. Oh, you Spreading Plague, so 13. You know they hadn't got Fireball Frostbolt last turn. You probably only take 12, worst case.
Time waits for no one.
Or you could just Alex now and then armor up on top of the new health total.
I bring life.
Okay.
But even a Fireball off the top wouldn't quite get the Netherlands there.
Yeah, plus they do have to watch the counter play at some point. Pretty easy for the Netherlands, though. The little Mana Worm shooting star looks really tasty. Obviously, the more minions they commit, the more Spreading Plague is a nightmare.
Mana Worm, Shooting Star, Explosive Runes, Ping. Go face with 2/3.
Is there... Yeah, there are some other plays, but they're all too slow, like just not letting them UI one of your minions, because you know it's coming next turn. But I think it's all too slow.
And then they just UI your face.
Yeah.
You're like, well, why did I play around that? Yeah. This is this is about all you could do.
And this is why you keep the Ferocious Howl last turn, because now you're going to get full value out of it on the turn after your UI. Again, if you even go that route, you might just coin Ferocious Howl, Spreading Plague now, but every time I try and find a way not to play Ultimate Infestation, I don't think I've ever found a real reason not to. Turns out making a 5/5 that doesn't get blown up, gaining 5 armor, killing off your opponent's only good minion, and fueling your own Ferocious Howl is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, putting yourself at 18 seems respectable to me.
Oh, and in the process dropping a Tyrant, because why not?
Explosive Runes, that's why not. Maybe you don't want to give them the extra bit of damage, but I guess something has to absorb it. Or does it? Do you really need to? Probably going to win this game just by out-armoring your opponent now.
Yeah, armor, you'll get a Tyrant, a Spreading Plague token or 2. Eventually you'll just get a Malygos. So Naturalize, as you highlighted very early on, is pretty useless against Mage because of the card draw is so helpful to them, because their cards are so cheap and efficient. So burning that's the counterspell.
Well, this way it uses more cards and they are not going to burn.
Really tidy, I like it.
Because they don't want to play these Tyrants. They don't want to give any extra damage to the Netherlands. And unfortunately, I think the Netherlands have just run out of steam now.
Yeah, and no Luneth makes such a big difference to that steam.
I mean, you were talking about percentages on websites for the Aggro Mage, and it's like, how many of those games was a Luneth found? Because it does make a massive difference.
It really does. You can see the difference here that's occurred, and as soon as this Ferocious Howl is played...
Ferocious Howl into Malfurion, that's just game over. I mean, you don't even need to play Ferocious Howl. You can just Malfurion and Hero Power if you want. Save the Ferocious Howl back for a little bit later. Doesn't matter which way you do it, you are not losing this game now if you're in Singaporean shoes.
Yeah, Tyler's sort of looking pretty accepting of the situation now.
And even though both these teams would be feeling relatively comfortable at 3-1, it does get a bit scary if you lose the series and you're at 3-2.
Yes, it really does. You've got to win next week then. And we keep highlighting it, but some of the stronger teams drop down to 0-2 very early on and are fighting their way back, like USA. And you don't want to be playing one of those on 3-2. You just don't.
Imagine that. Imagine if Netherlands were to lose here. USA versus Netherlands, do or die, to get into the last 16.
That'd be fun.
For the viewers.
Yeah, not for the players so much.
Not for the players. But it is getting to this point now in the global games where most of the players left are just phenomenal players anyway. I couldn't name you a player that is a bad one. There is
and
a
you
reason.
Wouldn't if you could.
There is a reason why they are here in the global games. They are high point earning players in their respective countries.
Yeah, I mean, I went through it earlier. There's 125 points from the Singapore team just in Season 2. And Singapore, not a country that a lot of people would associate with being like one of the best in the world, but they're showing otherwise in results this year.
Looking for some sort of miracle from Stargazer Luna.
That's a good way of wording it. It's kind of like miracle, isn't it? A bit like the old Gadget-san.
Yeah, it's not going to happen though. And we're going to see Singapore tie this one up 1-1.
Ooh. The old Gaskin confidence.
And in theory, I mean, we were looking at the statistics of these games. In theory, it should have gone the other way. Control Priest should have probably won, and Aggro Mage, in theory, could have won, but I still feel like Malygos Druid is favoured in this, regardless of what websites say.
I mean, we now know for sure. Absolute certainty after watching this game, which one is favoured.
Exactly. That's how things work.
And, yeah, I'll tell you what is absolutely certain now, though, is that Singapore are going to win this game of Hearthstone, even if the Luneth is drawn.
Maybe both Cinderstorms hit all the damage to face, and then you draw... No, I can't even fight
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even... I'm trying.
Just a wall of a barrier, if you like, against Malfurion there. And the shaky stuff at the top shows that Tyler has had enough of that Hearthstone game. Goes to one game all, but have it no other way.
And not a particularly pleasant game to play if you are Tyler there. It is extremely frustrating when you are so close. They were like 3 damage off lethal at one point with that fireball. But then the armor game from the Druid did come through. And even the ultimate infestation that didn't look that nice at the start was finally able to be played. And I think Tyler would have known if it had got to turn 10, things were going to get a little bit ugly.
Yeah, very instructive how they used that counterspell there to make sure the coin got the minimum use, but it didn't stem the tide at all in the end.
It's a shame. It is 1-1 though, and we are going to be continuing this series after a break. Next up, we're going to have some Odd Warrior versus Quest Rogue, so it's going to be an interesting one. We'll see that after this. Welcome back everyone to the Hearthstone Global Games. It's 1-1 between Singapore and the Netherlands, and we go into quite a lengthy game, I'm expecting now. It's going to be Odd Warrior versus Quest Rogue. Arguably extremely favoured for the Quest Rogue, but it might take them some time to get there.
Yeah, on ladder this game takes like 4 seconds.
Because people
just get auto-concede and move on with their life.
I've seen that happen actually quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't want to spend an hour losing a game of Hearthstone that they can't win. But
especially when we look at the actual deck lists.
Yeah, no Azalina in sight.
for the warrior. And
All for the quest rogue.
well, yeah, funny
To be
that.
fair.
Yeah, the Azalina really helps in the matchup. It gives you that chance to maybe steal the quest, which can actually happen once the quest is completed. If someone were to make a mistake,
Yeah.
you can steal that quest, or even just stealing a handful of 4/4 minions,
Which just
can be
acts as
beneficial.
removal. Yeah. So it's a lot less removal for the warrior who's already struggling to get it done. And Katsukuri, again, probably the best performing player on the Singapore team all year, so he'll be very comfortable on this. Ties, don't know who that guy is.
Nah, never heard of him.
Obviously having a great year himself. Qualified for his 8th consecutive playoffs, which is on Saturday, I believe, on this channel.
Not so far away. I mean, it is far away. It's over in LA. That's quite far
It's
away. But, I mean,
quite a distance.
big fan of the name Katsukuri.
Yeah, I remember that from...
Makes me pretty hungry, though. I'm not going to lie.
Does it?
Yeah. Actually starving right now.
You'll be starving after this game.
Yeah, well, it might be. We might be here for a little while. There is ways that Katsukuri can speed up the process. I mean, potentially Tice doesn't find any of his removal, and then the quest is completed on turn 5 or 6, and suddenly there's a wealth of 4/4s just beating you down.
But the key is to just not hurry yourself, right?
Exactly. You do just take your time. You want to make sure you don't throw away your infinite Zola combo, for example.
Yeah. And, you know, just Katsukuri, not Katsuhuri. Just going to take a moment or two. And then the Netherlands have got to sort of just take their time as well, really, by hitting you with 1-2s. Get in there. You can do it. 29 to go.
I mean, it's not like this matchup is unwinnable for the Warrior. Certainly,
not.
the loss of Azalina isn't great, but there is potential that you can just get a pretty scary board before your opponent does complete the quest. And even if they do complete the quest, if they overcommit to the board, your removal is going to do quite nicely. Brawls, Reckless Flurry, for example, can make it hard for the refill. But if Singapore start bouncing back Giggling Inventors, if they have the infinite Zolas, things get extremely tough for the Netherlands.
Yeah, one thing I do find fascinating in matchups like this is how the underdogs approach it. I've said it a few times before. You can learn a lot by watching how the team that isn't supposed to win in these heavily one-sided matchups go about trying to win. We saw it with Hunter playing Priest in a similar situation recently, and he didn't win, but how he generated chances, how the things might have worked out was fascinating on that game. And obviously it's Singapore's job to watch out for any traps that might occur. But now clearing up the board, not happening anytime soon.
So Mimic Pop looks nice. I think Mimic Pod is usually a good indicator of how you're going to approach this game. Depends what you get. You might get 2 boars, and then you're like, okay, we're going to complete the quest with the boar. Or you might get 2 vanishes, and then you're like, okay, so we have to play a little bit slower, but we have some removal available, and it means we can also be a little bit more sparing with our removal because we can use it to try and bounce back our minions.
Right, we get 2 Valeras.
I mean, I don't think that actually matters, does it?
Don't think so.
No, it's not that great.
An extra ice block against Warrior doesn't seem that important.
And so Katsukuri recognizing that Tice is getting somewhat aggressive here, and he's trying to stem that aggression early on. I can understand the reasoning for doing this, because you still have other minions left in your deck, but you need to be careful with which minions you are just throwing out onto the board. Scalehide can be very important in the latter stages of this game.
Yeah, and you know, Netherlands pressuring with everything they've got, which obviously isn't a lot, but 5 per turn, irritating enough for Katsukuri to take a bit of evasive action there.
Is there ever the thought of silencing your 3/3 ooze here, Lorinda? Are you that desperate to be pushing some damage, or is that just overkill? What else would you be silencing?
Sonya.
Damage has been done, hasn't it?
I mean, yes and no.
I don't
Damage has
like...
been done in terms of getting the quest done, but sometimes just Sonya sits around.
Yeah.
Can be a nuisance.
I hate silencing cards like Sonya because there are so many bounce back effects available for the quest rogue. So even if you silence and leave her on the board,
Sure.
she might just be thrown back into the hand, and then you are very sad.
But yeah, using it to clear up the board more than get the damage through. And now this board is even bigger. 6 damage, not 5 next turn. They showed they were struggling to deal with the 5. Obviously, though, plenty of time. If they can make Singapore panic is the key. I mean, if they can force them into having to panic is even more key, but that's less likely.
I mean, I feel like Singapore's turn, the last turn, was slightly panicky. It was just such a natural Mimic Pod
It
turn.
was. And this turn doesn't line up nicely at all. I mean, if you want to continue the same line of play you just went with, then dagger down the 2-1, use the deck hand up as well while you're at it, drop a wax elemental, but that just seems panicky as well.
I mean, Singapore are at the disadvantage at the moment where they haven't drawn anything to try and give them any sort of indication of how they want to actually complete the quest. So it makes everything a little bit more awkward for how they want to approach the game.
I feel they can just leave 4 here. Don't need to do anything else.
They're extremely reluctant to play these Mimic Pods, aren't they?
They are. And the coin, which makes more sense, because coining out Valera a turn earlier might be fun later on. Here's the Giggler. And this damage is starting to mount. And not a single bounce effect is making it really difficult for Singapore here.
And even though the Odd Warrior doesn't really have minions that can deal damage, if a board can go this wide, it is going to be chunking you down every turn, because the only way that Katsukuri is going to be able to stop all this little tiny, insy-bincy wits of damage is going to be with a Vanish, and there isn't a Vanish available at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously gone long, long ago if someone's just come back to Hearthstone after being in a shed for a year or something. Like no fans, no backstabs, that sort of stuff anymore. So literally got to get it done with what they can find, what they can scavenge together. But Sonya, Stone Tusk Boar, suddenly your preparation away from being in a fantastic spot.
Yeah, you are going to be able to complete this quest relatively soon, but is it going to be soon enough? The answer is usually yes against an Odd Warrior, but with Ziliax also being able to come into the mix next turn, that is going to be extra damage available. Singapore are going to have to start dealing with a little bit of this.
Well, that showed that Annoyatron.
Yeah.
Doing that again. Well. Tyze is enjoying this. One thing about having a matchup where you're not supposed to win is you can enjoy it.
Yeah, because
if you get the win.
You go in with a mindset, don't you? Of saying like, well, I don't expect to win here. And then suddenly when you get that 1%, things get a little bit more fun.
This Annoyatron's got a bit more fun. They could have taken 1 last turn and got rid of that Divine Shield. It'll be a lot harder now. And still no bounce effects, unless you count Sonya as a bounce effect, but suddenly down to 12. Yes, Tyze is readjusting in his seat. He's on for this. He thinks he's got a chance.
Well, there's a chance that Netherlands just win this.
With the
in like, what,
most pathetic minions.
8 turns?
Just duff them up. Tyze is trying desperately not to start thinking, because you know what happens when you start thinking you've got the quest rogue beat, is they just do that stuff that they do, and suddenly they've got 900 health and a board full of 4/4s.
Well, at this point, I feel like I've lied to the viewers. I said this was going to be a long one.
You have?
Yeah. I apologise. At the moment, Tyze has got other things he wants to get attending to. He's like, I need to stream later. Let's finish this series quickly.
Yeah. Just get on with it. Just kill your opponents. Have a little stream.
Singapore running out of time. What do you do on this turn?
Multiple ways. They're running out of turns and they're running out of rope.
Glacial Shard of 4/4. Mimic Pod seems like a late time to be using it. Deckhand may be the option for actually completing this quest now.
Yeah. Puts them in a bit of a better position for next turn as well with Sonya's and just killing off stuff. And suddenly, it's all starting to look like they can get this done.
Oh, Dr. Boo. Rush mechs.
Is that the first words that came into your head? Rush mech.
Rush mechs.
I mean, that's scary.
Okay, can Dynomatic do any damage here? It can obviously damage your own
Depends how you look at it. Yeah, I mean, it can, but it doesn't look good. There's a really good chance it kills your own ooze. I think you need that ooze. If you don't ooze, you lose.
But you could... So you could use the Rover to trade into the 0/2, then use the Giggling to kill off the 0/2. And then send 3 damage to face if you would like. Baku's not so great. Although I say that,
it's
actually
all right.
putting a big minion on the board is going to be quite significant on turn 9.
I think it's clear at this point, although not certain, that your opponents haven't got Vanish. They've done some really weird stuff to avoid vanishing if they have. Although, it's never certain, because you do some weird stuff to avoid vanishing. Have they drawn a single bounce spell yet? They haven't, right?
Not if we're not counting Sonya as bouncing.
I'm not.
Well, they need something. I guess you could use Sonya plus the deckhand to start charging in now to this Annoyatron.
You get 5 charges?
Yeah, you've already played 2 deckhands as far as I'm aware. So you only need
Yeah, I mean, you
3
don't,
more.
you'll get the quest done easier. You can take more charges to actually wipe the Annoyatron off the face of the planet as well.
The only annoying thing is, they don't have a way of completing the quest and playing the quest.
No, they're going to have to wait 1 more turn, but they're going to be facing down not much damage. And then they can complete the quest, play Wax Elemental, and that's when the fun begins. They've got Scale Hide in hand as well, so start gaining health back. And next turn, if Ties doesn't get it done next turn, going to be in that position which everybody hates when they're playing against Quest Rogue, which is where you thought you had them, but you didn't.
And because there is no Azalina available for the Netherlands, it means Singapore can make this play. They can leave the Crystal Core in their hand and not worry about what's going to happen. They might not make this play if there was an Azalina available. You don't want to offer the opportunity of a Crystal Core to your opponent.
Now, you're saying about Sonya not sticking around, not being that important. Do you want to change your mind?
No, what I was saying is I don't like silencing her and leaving her on the board because then she can be bounced back.
Okay, sure. Except your opponents don't draw any bounce cards in their top 13, which is absolutely preposterous.
And unfortunately, Dynamatic doesn't quite guarantee the job being done here either.
Doesn't. And it kind of needs to do a job here. It's pretty close, though. There's every chance it will get the job done.
Dr. Boomin look for a Zapper. Well, there he is. Unfortunately...
That's not how 2 mana works.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just too late.
So here comes the stuff. Plenty of ways of approaching this, which is why we've both gone a little bit quiet.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sonya's not that impactful here. Not really.
I mean, you can gain an extra 1 from a Scale Hide before you Crystal Core if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
But you could just actually just play an army of big monsters instead. They're not panicking at all. We said it was about not panicking. Didn't even want to gain the 4. Just going to look after the Scale Hide for later times, because if they do lose it, it does get messy for them.
Yep, and I like keeping back the boar here and just posing a threat with this current board, demanding an answer from the Netherlands. And now Singapore can start to just grind this matchup out.
Yep, still going to be work to do, though, because no Valera is annoying, but obviously Giggling Inventor, and surely Singapore found some bounces in. Like, where is their bounce? It's bounced off.
It's whether we can see cards like Eternium, Omega Assembly, sorry, turn up and actually really help out Tice find some value to try and compete with this board. Stonehill Defender maybe can find some influential taunts. Super Collider we haven't seen appear, that can certainly do some work in this matchup as well. When you look at the likes of Super Collider, Brawls, Reckless Flurry, there are multiple ways of just dealing with boards over and over again. Mind Control Tech, there's 1 Mind Control Tech available for the Netherlands. So Singapore will have to be very careful with how many minions they do plop onto the board.
Netherlands not willing to give up their Reckless Flurry so easily. Think their Baku might find a better spot to maybe get onto the board rather than just being destroyed. Don't really want to give your opponents another Wax Elemental and another Boar either. For no reason. And this is the problem with Sonya sticking around. She is causing them a lot of trouble. Interesting there. I guess Singapore do have to get on with it. They're not really played into the brawl particularly. Still got a 1 in 3 of winning.
I imagine this Reckless Flurry probably will end up being used only when we see the armor gain potential of the hero power from Tice.
Last turn played around Super Collider too. Make sure that the Sonya is nicely hidden away, so...
Remember, all mechs have Rush. So this works out really nicely to regain the board control. You don't even need the rush.
No. Well, you can't. Well, you can, but you've killed everything, so. Giggling Inventor. Haven't used one yet, so they can use one if they want to.
Yeah, this is where it gets to the important stage where you really need to know the matchup. You need to know what you need to be saving. Both this Scalehide and this Giggling Inventor are going to be important with the likes of Zola and with the likes of Brewmasters and the Shadow Steps. You need the value here because even though it seems like you should just win out of board control, because the Warrior has just so much removal with its Brawls, with its Super Collider, with its Rush mechs, it can get the job done in Fatigue.
Yeah, it's built to deal with multiple board states. The trouble is that Rogue makes more than multiple, whatever more than multiple is.
I mean, without the Infinite Zola combo, I think this would be a far better matchup for the Odd Warrior. Oh, but that's nice to actually find the Brewmaster there. Without the, maybe they knew they were going to get Brewmaster?
I don't think they knew 100%, but it must have been a very high chance.
Because otherwise it was a little bit risky plopping Scalehide.
They probably felt the need to take a risk. I mean, things weren't
looking great.
Weren't going great for them. And we've seen before, we highlighted it in the show yesterday, that actually your Giggling Inventor is usually more important than your Scalehide. Not necessarily in this matchup, because you want to get the health back, but even then, making lots of 4/4s is your Giggling Inventor, so giving up one or the other, you take the risk of losing your Scalehide, makes a lot more sense to me.
Now Super Collider can just be used to dominate this board. And you can see your favourite animation, Neil.
Wait, is it?
Hmm?
Is it my favourite animation?
I thought it was.
No.
You don't like it?
Well, it's all right.
You literally said yesterday on was it yesterday? What day is it today? Last week. You were like, oh, I love the Super Collider animation.
Uh-huh. That's different to being my favourite. I love all the animations.
You don't remember anything from last week, do you? How far does your memory go back?
I don't remember.
What do you have for breakfast?
What are we talking about?
I need to get you put in a home. Like a Hearthstone home.
Wow, like a gaming home.
Yeah, maybe that will do for you.
That'd be fun.
Maybe that is the future.
This would be a good time for
What, gaming
when we reach our elderly states, well, you sooner than I, maybe we get put in like a gaming house.
Cornflakes.
For our retirement. Sorry, what?
Cornflakes.
That's what you had for breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, glad you got there in the end.
Lots of damage still coming in, but it's not lots in the scheme of things. This hand, though, is not impressing anybody right now.
Which one?
The one that Singapore have.
Okay. It's not great. Scalehide is going to certainly mean you can start to get out of range of the Netherlands and the little bit of aggression they're trying to get through.
Where's that Valera, though? Getting rid of everything they can to get nearer to Valera.
Valera is important, but also so is Zola.
This is going to get awkward if it gets too much nearer the bottom of their deck.
The trouble is Tyson needs to actually find some minions that are going to stick around, some mechs that are going to be able to do some work for him.
Does he need to ever hit Singapore again, as long as he doesn't die? Because they're so low on health. I guess they're going to get it back with a Scalehide, assuming Valera ever does turn up. It feels so futile when you start fighting these Annoyatrons.
So it's whether you take this opportunity now with the armor gain to actually use Reckless Flurry to clear one of the boards. You have 2 brawls available for latter.
Yeah, you're not going to get many chances again, are you? Because it's only a 1 in 5 chance of getting the
There is a potential that you wouldn't get armor gain again this game.
Mm-hmm. And then you've wasted your flurry recklessly. But there's a chance you might not never need to flurry, in which case you've wasted 7 armor. But I feel that
I think at some point
this
you're going to have
good
to flurry.
spot.
Yeah, flurry is one of your board clears that you need to use. So I'm perfectly okay with actually taking this opportunity now, seizing the moment.
There they go.
It's whether you put do you put a hatchling on the board? Is there a reason to not, I guess?
The Scalehide might
Scalehide,
be not.
yeah.
They know it's there.
Oh, Zap now puts your opponent down to 6.
That's the way they can win, I guess.
There is a world you just get zap, zap, zap.
Yep, and you just zap them, and you never play another. 7 cards in deck as well, so can they win if they never play another minion or game?
Yeah, because in theory, Singapore would have to just put a Scalehide on the board. It doesn't have charge, it only has rush. And then you just remove it, and then suddenly the Scalehide is gone.
That's how removal works. And because the important cards are so near the bottom here, there's a chance of some fatigue. They're going to show us get this back, I would think. Just trying to generate some action. Try and force the Netherlands to put some defence down, because they're only on 25 themselves. And so if you can force them to put something down, then your Scalehide's back in the game. And of course, you can make the small matter of more 4/4s. Plus, I feel that Singapore know that the rest of their deck must surely be full of bounce, because we've hardly seen any.
And for a matchup that is considered, what, like 80-20 favoured for the Quest Rogue in some cases?
If not more.
It doesn't look like a comfortable spot, even though we know there is full well the potential that they actually just win this game from here because of the sheer amount of value available for them. It doesn't look very comfortable at all.
I think there is only like 1 Brood left, actually.
2 Vanishes also in there.
Yeah, and a Shadow Step possibly. We've seen them both actually. So, eh.
So there's 2 Vanishes, Zola, Valera.
Yeah, there's 7 cards. So
Time for a master plan.
pretty silly.
Rush the enemy! Defend
Comes Darius. Again, not letting anything stay on board. Getting that zap to the face, puts the opponents down to 6. Super Collider doing great work. And Tyze is unhappy. He's just rolled the armor again.
Yeah, they wanted to be finding some mechs, finding some value.
6 cards left, no Valera.
I would guess if they find their second flurry, then this armor gain isn't too bad.
And if the Netherlands do happen to win this game, this swings the match completely on its head. The next game's sort of 50-50-ish, and then they've got a favourable in the end. So if they can somehow take this one down, and they definitely can take this one down, they're going to be in a great spot in this match. Again, 3-1, so the winner's almost certainly through to the top 16.
Singapore now are saying, right, we need to start committing to a board. They get a Brewmaster, so they can bounce back this Giggling Inventor again, which they probably do need to.
You know what they need? Is a Valera. And that's why they're thinking what to do here, but I think you've got to get the Giggling back. They want to play the Novice, but I don't think they can. Because the Giggling Event is a resource they need to actually win the game. We're talking about survival at the moment, and have been for, I don't know, 20 turns or 15 turns.
There's that Reckless Flurry as well. That's actually perfect timing. I mean, it's not ideal because it doesn't allow you to clear the entire board.
It's pretty good, though.
It's your best use of your hero power.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
It would indeed be a good time for a master plan.
And they're going to need it to try and find this last little bunch of damage. They need something special, and I don't know whether that's going to be 2 zaps.
2 zaps, or a little bit of fatigue and 1 zap.
I think
They're not letting this Scalehide get any health gain, that's for sure. That's another thing, Valera's just that extra 5 armor if she shows up.
Okay, so using the Brawl, just leave one of these minions and saying, right, we can save the Reckless Flurry for later.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit low on health. They know there's boars in hand. So 20 is just a bit iffy when you're leaving a 4/4 up. They're actually getting to the point where they might just die, Valera or not. And not is where Valera seems to be at right now.
I mean, there's how much?
It would have been lethal if they hadn't done it.
8 damage available. 18 damage available this turn. Boar, vanish. Boar.
So that's 16.
Yep. Well, yeah. So 20, including what's on the board,
and the
21.
So it would have been lethal had they used the flurry. Actually, it wouldn't because they'd kill the 4/4. But yeah. And Singapore just going to get that damage in there, and both players are going to be on ridiculous health totals. But this is going to force Tyze to put something on the board a lot of the time. And Valera is still just hanging about. I assume they'll only play one of these balls back down, if any. Yeah. There you go. Have some lethal setup. Try not to use their dagger charge, so... But they've used both their deckhands, right? I think. So, not as relevant. If you ever get Valera, you never use another dagger charge.
Mind control tech being played around by Singapore as well. That's not going to come into the equation.
And both teams are just not letting their opponents use their cards efficiently. The Scale Hide's been shut out of the game for a long time. The MC Tech now being shut out of the game. But Mr. Giggles is getting the work done.
And you have to think, even with Brawl now available, even with a Diehorn Hatchling to put stuff in the way, that goes against the plan of not putting minions on for Scale Hide. And then you're just throwing away your potential win condition then. And with 2 balls in hand, the potential to find even more bounce back, like Zola is one of those 3 cards which would just be lethal. Valera wouldn't be lethal yet, but it would give you the lethal the next turn.
Yeah, plenty of time as well.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
It's been a great effort from the Netherlands.
Oh, you're talking in the past tense nearly.
I am.
The future past tense. Is that a tense?
I mean, that's what I mean. Now there is the chance for the Scale Hide to start doing its work. And Scale Hide, trade the Annoyatron, Boar, Vanish,
Yep.
Boar.
In some order or other.
You're not actually quite there, are you? Oh, yeah, Prep, Vanish is fine. And then you've got the damage. And then Singapore finally get there. It's been a good effort from the Netherlands. Tice was kind of itching his seat when they had got them down to just like 9 health. And he thought maybe he was going to be able to get there.
A couple of zaps might have changed it around instead of keep getting armor.
But it's such a difficult matchup for the Odd Warrior, especially when you don't have Azalina.
And that's without Valera happening. Like you say, though,
Yeah.
Azalina's a key point that happened there because they knew they didn't have to play around it. They just chilled with the Crystal Core in their hand for a turn or 2. And that helped them to just be able to set it up so easily.
I mean, some of the turns were still a little bit shaky from Singapore, where they were a little bit worried about the potential damage. But, I mean, we saw how close the Netherlands got, so maybe they were quite rightly worried about that early damage.
Yeah, and
just stalling.
It made all the difference, and they were well aware of how much of that stuff they could use and get away with.
Well, Singapore are 2-1 up. Let's have a look and see what's going to be match number 4 in this series then, because the Netherlands, they need to try and fight back, but it is going to be a tough one, I think, because match number 4 is going to be Malygos Druid versus the Even Warlock, which is a bit 50-50. You were asking me before, Neil, how I felt on this matchup, and I personally thought that it was a Malygos Druid matchup, but you were like, well, the Even Lock also has a decent chance in this one.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing we've talked about before, where the Druid doesn't have that good early removal, except this time your Naturalize is not playing against Mage, it's playing against the Warlock that already has a load of cards, so the Naturalize's downside is basically mitigated by the Warlock's wants to draw cards anyway.
Yeah, because usually when they're playing like a Mountain Giant, they put it on the board, and then their hand is relatively full, and you can also burn cards, and you can burn significant cards with Naturalize.
Yeah.
If Gul'dan disappears, then that's going to be really important for the Even Lock. But if the Malygos Druid doesn't find that early removal, suddenly you've got your Giants on the board that are just smacking down the Druid, and then you get your Hooked Reavers also joining the party.
And it is a party when you've got Hooked Reavers.
Is it?
Yeah.
What makes it a party?
They're 7/7s. That's just a party for anybody.
I mean, Hooked Reavers don't really seem like nice characters. I don't think I'd invite them to my party.
Have you ever had like a dinosaur party? You have the Hooked Reavers
Hooked
long
Reavers dinosaurs?
No, the dinosaurs eat them because they're bigger.
Okay. I mean, you've got a thing for dinosaurs today, haven't you?
Always.
Dinosaurs and eggs.
Yeah.
Hooked Reavers are demons, as far as I'm
They are.
aware. Yeah. I'd say
That's why they come back with...
demons beat
Good.
dinosaurs, don't they?
Do 7/7s beat 8/8s and 9/9s?
I mean, but theoretically, demons beat dinosaurs.
Theoretically, dinosaurs exist.
Theoretically, demons exist.
Only in your head.
In my mind. Well, Theo and Kaius are going to be the 2 players shaping up to take on this one. We had an interview with Theo last week on the community show, didn't we? And he was saying, he ran us through his kind of deck list and said they were fairly standard. And to be honest, I think every week since Boomsday, which is just 2 weeks now, we've not seen that much experimentation, have we?
It's very difficult, I think, when you've got to bring 9 decks to playing against 9 other decks to do much experimentation. We're seeing more and more on ladder now. People like Ike doing their thing, throwing out different deck lists every day that are getting like top 50 with. I think he got rank 3 legend with just, I don't know, autocomplete priest or something. I think he called it good priest.
With Ties. Yeah, Ties, it was like an inner fire priest.
Oh,
right?
Ties, yeah, I was on about Ike. But Ties also got to rank 3 with his own priest. Very different priest to Ike's. But so people are experimenting on ladder and doing well, but 9 decks versus 9 decks, bringing something close to the best lists just makes sense.
And we saw Singapore there just trying to throw everything away to see if they could find some mountain giants, but things look good on the side of the Netherlands. What were the cards we were talking about? Naturalize is important, Wild Growth, Twig. Juicy.
Are twigs juicy?
Depends what twigs. If they've been soaking in puddles, yeah.
Alright.
Like twigs that have fallen off the world tree.
So twig off the world tree.
Aha, see?
You never were good at spelling, were you?
Nope.
They're also juicy because they've got sap, which I'm sure you're used to. Well, Cody got sapped last night.
Good for him.
Alright, double Twilight Drake is going to allow some pressure to be put, but the Netherlands' hand does look pretty tidy, it must be said.
Shields up.
Yeah, and Singapore just starting to dump some cards out of their hand now, just so they don't face any disgusting overdraw issues. But yeah, these Twilight Drakes are going to have to try and get some damage through.
Yeah.
But judging by hand starts alone, I have to be in the Malygos Druid side.
I wonder how Kai's is going to play this Skulking Geist. I mean, he's going to put it on turn 6, but what he's going to do before that? Having no giants beforehand might be quite amusing.
Yeah, it's whether the Naturalize just comes out on turn 5 for the Netherlands, because they recognise there is a possibility of the Geist, but
you could choose, I mean, I don't think they're going to, but you could choose just not to play anything, but Naturalize might not even be the hand, then you just wasted your time, so you've got to slam that out there.
Yeah, and it's whether the Singapore are saying, well, we also... Do we care about getting rid of Naturalize right now?
We don't mind 2 more cards, we haven't got a giant. If we draw a giant, we're good.
They might be able to go for something a little bit more aggressive, like a Dread Infernal instead.
Gone are the days when a 4/9 for 4 was considered aggressive. It's a bit scary.
So maybe, I mean, you could just Naturalize this Twilight Drake.
The thing is, though, it looks like a bait. It looks like it's, hey, kill this so I can play my giant. Netherlands have got to be very careful of that, because if they did Naturalize it and then get a giant in the face, it's not pleasant. Theo, stream is getting bigger and bigger now, and when you watch him stream, he is very meticulous with his plays. Certainly doesn't miss a lot.
Care to explain what that word means to a viewer that might not know what it means?
He's clever.
Okay, cool. Because obviously I knew what
I know you
that
know,
meant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see by the look on your face.
Yeah, just in case like anyone else didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, I get it.
So he does seem like quite the intelligent young lad. Is he young? I don't even really know.
Everyone's young.
Compared to you, yeah.
Oh, and
Aya.
I know they don't like it when we ooh about card draws, but that's really important. No, it's not Aya. She's been relegated to wild.
But I ooh and I are because when I was mooching over the lists, I think I was looking at the wrong ones and I hadn't even noticed that there was an ooze, but you do expect an ooze in even lock nowadays. Well, for quite a while, to be honest. But you can take your time as Singapore. Let the Netherlands think they have a chance. Lull them into a false sense of security and then BAM!
Bam.
Wham
You're
bam,
gonna lull
thank you
them.
ma'am. Yes, lull them.
Say that again?
Lull.
Okay, cool.
But Skulking Geist and Swampoos, 2 important techs in this matchup, both being found, is quite nice for Singapore. And they're starting to put a little bit of pressure on here, Lorinda.
And there's no plague. Which would buy some time. And without that, actually, this is going to get really orcs for the Netherlands.
Sorry, did you just say orcs?
Yeah, like raid leader, that sort of thing.
Okay, so not like, you weren't shortening the word awkward like the kids do nowadays.
Because that would be too awkward if an old guy did that.
That would be. I'm cringing just at the thought of you doing that.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd think I'd do that. So Netherlands do finally use up that naturalise. Convinced there is no giant on the way. And pretty good job of tidying everything up.
Yep, you are just going to be clearing off everything on the board, but now your hand is garbage. Oh, bye-bye Mountain Giant. That's a nice burn.
Ooh. Yeah, your hand really is garbage until turn 9 at the moment. Unless you can pick up a Nourish.
So maybe this is a Geist turn now for Singapore, but they have just seen 2-1 cost cards.
That might not be the worst. I wonder if they don't mind not thinning the deck. Because thinning the deck too much just gets Theo closer to his good stuff. You've also seen them panic to clear a board rather than just drop a Spreading Plague, so you know it's not there.
Okay, what do you prefer? A Dread Infernal which deals damage to yourself and it's a 6/6, or a Skulking Geist that is only a 4/6, but it gets rid of potential removal?
Oh, look at next turn now. They've got tap into Homunculus into Hooked Reaver. So my answer is this.
That doesn't quite get you there,
I guess
though,
it's
does it?
17, sorry.
No, not quite. Not yet, but it does get them closer.
Yes, I'm wrong. I'll take it. But it's the odd number of damage was needed to be done, but it still looks decent.
And next turn, you are 100% playing Acidic Swamp Ooze as well.
What does the twig attack here, if anything? Face? I suppose it's fine to attack face, actually. You still need another point of damage if you're Caius.
What's happening? Why are we volcanoing? I haven't seen this since 2017.
Wow. Look at that volcano, though.
That literally the global games of last year was all volcanoes. I swear there was one every broadcast.
There was.
A nice throwback to 2017. I appreciate it. Thank you, production. So Giggling Inventor is... There's a Defile. But of course that Defile doesn't eat up a Giggling Inventor as you would assume it would. But alongside an Acidic Swamp Ooze, it is going to be able to do so.
Well, the Swamp Ooze is a bit naughty here because it gives your opponent the access to their infestation. So when we were saying it's a little way off...
Yeah. That's the thing, you have to destroy it, but they are going to be up to 10. So it's not the end of the world for the Netherlands, and you saw the face of Theo. He was like, well, it's not great, but also...
We kind of needed it right
We did
now.
kind of need it with our hand.
Do you play the Sun Fury Protector here just for a chance at Bone Maring next turn? It's definitely a consideration. Or do you play the Homunculus just to defend your 6/2 from any... Well, it's going to get blown up. Whatever you do is going to get blown up by Ultimate Infestation. So I think you need a second minion. Give yourself a Bone Mare option.
So I like Homunculus just reducing your health a little bit, getting closer towards Hooked Reaver. Could even tap first if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think you do tap first. Turn 7 is the turn I always whine about when I watch Warlock, even Warlock play. It's always an awkward turn. See, I say awkward. See? There's the no issue we're talking about. Now it doesn't matter anymore.
And maybe Singapore are slightly concerned about their life total now, opting not to tap that turn, saying, well, they've got their 10 mana now. Things get a little bit scary from this point onward. And this is where the Malygos Druid starts to take control now in the latter stages of the game.
Yeah, it's not over yet, though.
No, not yet.
It's getting close, but here's the Bone Mare we were talking about. Just a one-off in the deck. Just seem to sneak into that utility slot quite often.
But now Malfurion available, which also buffs up this Spellstone, which can be used to remove as well.
Yeah.
The lack of tappage from Singapore last turn, the turn before, means there is no way to put these Hooked Reavers on the board yet either. If they had have tapped previously, there was potential for tap into double Hooked Reaver next turn.
Which would be nice, because not only is it double Hooked Reaver, but it goes into the Gul'dan turn if those are removed. But they are playing a slower game.
And that is a key point. Gul'dan is going to be really important here for Singapore. That extra lifesteal, just getting yourself back up and trying to get out of range of the potential damage from Malygos is going to be extremely significant.
Looking at both players here, neither of them are saying a word. Okay, thanks, Theo. But neither of them spoke there for about 20 seconds, as they're both just taking input from their teammates.
You do have listeners on a team?
Yeah.
That you kind of... I feel like on teams you will have players who know what they're going to kind of do with the play. They will listen, see what their team says. If their team says what they were thinking, they'll just go with it anyway. And then if their team isn't thinking what they're thinking, they'll then argue their point afterwards.
Yeah, and I think the Netherlands, one of those 3 countries that have exactly the same team as last year, are in a good spot in that regard.
I'm wondering whether the consideration not to attack in there from Theo, so that the double-hooked Reaver wasn't available.
Yeah, I think somebody probably made the call that they didn't think it was there. Because there have been opportunities, because they chose not to tap, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, the tapping certainly was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, they chose not to put themselves into tap range, so why would you expect them to have a hook Reaver? Yeah, for instance, that's the sort of read that somebody could get wrong.
Suddenly you got to deal with some 7/7s.
Yeah. That's always fun. Remember those days? When 4-mana 7/7s were pretty good?
No.
Blanked them out. Obviously, because you can't remember them.
Hide those memories.
Tangled web.
Shaman was the scary thing.
Yeah, that wasn't for me, that deck. I never drew any of the good cards, I always lost. That's my excuse.
So you can use your Spellstone and a Moonfire to deal with a 7/7 if you want, but it's not pretty.
Yeah, at some point you've got to sort of have enough stuff to win the game. Which is fine, of course, they will have. Now above their starting health total. Now below their starting health total. Didn't last long.
Yeah, just using this armor gain to clear off 7/7s while still feeling it a comfortable life total. But Gul'dan is going to summon all those demons back, of course. Not his 7/7s, only his 4/4s.
And there's no plague in hand for the Netherlands, which could be really awkward.
And there's no Floop to just throw Malygos onto the board, and even if you did throw Malygos onto the board, you just die. So we might need to see mind control tech into branching paths for armor, as well as a hero power.
Ouch.
And Netherlands are going to be desperately hoping for one of those plagues, just to allow for a little bit of stall, so they can find Floopy Boy and put Malygos onto the board.
I mean, they are so close to dead here.
My thoughts are
They are. I mean, even if Mind Control Tech pulls the best card, there's still so much damage available for Singapore.
27, I believe, at the moment. So that's well over lethal. So Netherlands have to do something creative, or they are going to slip to 3 and 2 in the tournament. Obviously, they have ways of dealing with several things, so they're probably not going to die next turn. Unless Theo doesn't do anything. You've got to do something, Theo. The rope's burning.
Now, opting to draw cards, that's leaving quite a lot of damage left on the board. This is going to be, what, 21 now available?
Mm-hmm. 21, and they want 25. This is the sign of good players, though. People are willing to use their health total as a resource. Floops entered the fray. Everyone likes a good floop. Spreading Plague finally drawn as well, so that aspect of things have been tidied up. The hero powers cancel out to some extent, although, like you say, Malygos has somehow got to get played. Singapore just lumping it all into face.
There is a Mossy Horror in the list for Singapore as well.
Ah, that's awkward.
That is
But there's branching paths, so
quite scary.
you can play Spreading Plague, branching paths, get out of range that
Yes,
way.
you
Then
can.
you can't use your hero power that turn. And if it's going to be that close, you might want to hero power every single turn.
Skulkengeist, although it does destroy some cards, it does mean that Theo isn't going to overdraw here.
Mm-hmm.
So, hidden benefit for Theo, and overdrawing Lich King wouldn't have been so great. But is he going to have time to even play the Lich King?
There's a Black Knight in the deck for Singapore as well. Just going to double check. There is. So I don't think they want to play the Lich King or they're dead, as far as they're concerned.
My thoughts are plain.
So, Ferocious Howl, Mind Control Tech, and Branching Paths is a very defensive play. Also means you can use your Branching Paths for armor and not have to worry about your Spreading Plague potentially being killed off. Because although Spreading Plague into Branching Paths for attack is nice, is it enough to win the game? Is your health total something you need to be scared of?
I mean, you definitely need to be scared of it because you're taking a lot of damage.
Because like a Defile into Hellfire something could mess things up.
There's 20 again next turn. They've got to expect 1 Hellfire. So Mossy Horror, but they're going to buff up, so not Mossy Horror. That's a lot more armor gone, but it's 1 turn nearer to stabilization.
Typical. Typical.
Well, it just shows why you make that play.
Yep.
So I can silence 1, and then it all gets a bit difficult. Trade into 1 with the Bone Mare. Spellstone 1, presumably. Let's see how that Spellstone won't be on 5. Well, that's getting close then.
It is getting pretty close, and it's the next step then for Theo is survival once again. Ferocious Howl is armor gain. Mind Control Tech could be in use if there are enough minions on board when it comes to his turn.
Just trying to work out if they've got
Is
this.
there
They
just
have, they've got it. Yeah,
There's
they've got
just
it.
9 available.
There is just 9 available. I was trying to work that out. That's why I went all quiet. I could see that my version got a lot through and it wasn't quite the 9. I'm thinking there must be a better way. And Singapore taking down the match 3-1. They go to 4-1. They're through to the top 16 of the Hearthstone Global Games. And the Netherlands have just got to wait 1 more week in that ever-increasing pile of 3 and 2s.
Yeah, and just the Hellfire able to get through it. I could see you were trying to worm your statistics away in your head, and you got there in the end, Lorinda. For me, however, I was a little bit behind, but I just followed you into the path, and I waited.
A twig off the world tree.
Twig of the world tree. Let's have a look at the final matchup and see what went down in the entire series then. It was a victory for Singapore in the end. The Netherlands just not able to find some victories in some unfavourable matchups. A particular highlight for me was Tice trying to find a victory with his Odd Warrior against the Quest Rogue, but it was not enough. And Singapore, they were delighted, and quite rightly so, because that puts them at 4-1, which pretty much puts them into the last 16, Lorinda.
Yep, and good for it as well. They did have, I mean, they played Brazil already, but a slightly easier route than some. But even so, they've proved what they are capable of here. I'm no surprise. They've got 2 players, very nearly 3 players into the playoffs, and Singapore, a very rising nation. And again, they've got a tour stop coming up soon too.
And beating the Netherlands is a very impressive feat as well. Like, the players that are available on the Netherlands side, to be able to say you've took them down is something that you can brag about to some friends for quite some time.
Yeah, definitely so.
Let's have a look at the highlights then for the match. And, well, it was quite some time ago it felt that Mitsuhide was bashing through with his odd Paladin. He was able to find the victory against the Priest, despite the fact there was Dustbreakers early on, there was Dustbreakers later in the game, but he was just able to find the damage where he needed.
Yeah, and they earned this one by not playing that Vine Cleaver on turn 7, or when they drew it, sorry. They would probably have lost if they had, because it got immediately Harrisoned. Instead of just waiting 1 turn, which meant that they got to develop a bigger board, and there was no Harrison there to defend. And I feel that helped significantly. This was sort of the opposite. It looked like they might get it done here, but all the pew-pews were not enough, and he had to give that one up pretty quickly.
And there were smiles from the Netherlands side when they were both losing and winning, to be honest. It did seem like they were enjoying themselves, and Tice certainly was enjoying this game for a little while, and then it started to get a little bit ugly towards the end when suddenly you're facing down constant Annoyatrons being plopped onto the board, and then Singapore were able to find that little bit of damage just through a prep into Vanish. And it was an unfortunate game for Tice, a very difficult one for him, but he gave it a good go.
Yeah, and in fairness, there was no Valera for Katsukuri, so he had to do it the hard way as well, and use up a lot of early removal, a lot of minions to do the early removal, and I think that worked out just in time for them.
And despite the fact the Netherlands had such a good start, finding Twig, finding their ramp, having the ultimate infestation available, the fact that Gul'dan was available on 10 after playing a significant amount of demons, they were able to push through damage. And I wonder whether that one attack from Theo to face to allow both Hooked Reavers to be put on the board might have just made the difference in that match.
Possibly, although they did get killed pretty quickly and come back. But even so, if they hadn't been allowed to be played as 7/7s, maybe they just wouldn't have been put on the board. Maybe Gul'dan wouldn't have been as good.
Maybe. But we can have a chat with Sequinox, I believe, is on the line. You must be a very happy chappy, Sequinox. You have moved through, I think, to the last 16 now. The team must have been delighted after that win.
Yep, feels good, man. Feels really, really good. Like, oof. We're still like, you know, we just had like a crazy, like we were on Discord and then we just like cheered and cheered because today we are not playing together. So, but yeah, feels good, man.
And what's preparation been like throughout the team? Were you feeling confident coming into this week, or were there some nerves here or there?
I think we are always confident. I don't think there were any nerves. Basically, preparation is always more or less like maybe the 2 days before submission, and then we'll just get together at night, you know, have a Discord session and discuss some text choices, stuff like that. But I think roughly throughout all the weeks, our strategy remained the same, and I'm really glad that it paid off.
Do you feel you guys are not being taken seriously enough by some of the other countries? You've got a lot of HCT points. You've got people in top 4s of tour stops. So
I'm not too sure whether like people actually know about that information about us. But if they don't, I guess it's fine. It's mostly working in our favor. I believe during the pick ban phase, during many of these matches, we came out on top, but mainly because maybe some teams weren't giving us enough respect and, you know, like the level 1, level 2 picks and bans. So maybe, but so far, I think we are okay with it.
Yeah, I think they'll be respecting you from this point onwards if they weren't before.
And I mean, you went up against Netherlands, which is full of some very famous players. Does that impact how you play at all? Like, are you ever thinking, oh, I'm up against Tice or Mitsuhide, or does it not really matter for you guys? You're just focusing on your own game?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, we are just playing our best. And I mean, in Hearthstone, you lose to yourselves more often than not. So I think as long as we focus on our own game plan, I think it matters more than worrying about what players the other country has. Yeah.
Well, I think teams are going to start to respect you soon. Congratulations on your victory, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot from you during the last 16. Well done.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And teams do need to start respecting some of these players, because I mean, you have the stats on their HCT points.
Yeah.
They're showing what they're made of against some of the best players in the world. I'm really impressed by Singapore.
And just shows how on edge they were in that game. We were on edge ourselves, but obviously finding that lethal at the end there, he's still recovering from the play straight into an interview afterwards. So that's why we had to wait a moment for him, I think, just to get his breath.
He took his breath, and Singapore took their victory. Right, next up, I believe is going to be a change. I think Hong Kong versus Switzerland is actually going to be next on your screen. So that is going to be a fantastic matchup. Both teams are at 3-1. So another matchup, potentially with a team going to 4-1 and getting to those last 16. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you shortly.